And welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And this week we welcome in an old friend, Jeff Cloud, who's now currently serving on the Corporation Commission.
Yes, but before we bring Jeff on, happy 8th anniversary.
How about that?
8th anniversary for The Verdict, 413 shows. We're still going strong. I don't believe it.
And somebody out there, somebody's watching for the very first time and going, "You're kidding me. This has been on before?"
This has been on that long? Are they all reruns?
413 original shows. And Jeff Cloud, today's guest. We'll be learning more about the Corporation Commission, what Jeff's got on his agenda, and it's all coming up next on show number 413, our 8th anniversary show of The Verdict.
Every day America uses clean-burning natural gas instead of coal or oil is a day of victory for our environment. That's why Chesapeake chose to explore for natural gas exclusively, and we've never looked back. Because natural gas burns twice as clean as oil or coal, and reducing carbon emissions to combat potential global warming is every bit as urgent as cutting our dependence on energy imports. As America's #1 driller of new gas wells, Chesapeake is moving fast to find untapped reserves of natural gas here at home. It's the right fuel for America's economy and the fuel for a clean air future. We just happen to be early to see it so clearly. Chesapeake, natural gas wins the day.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Today we're really pleased to join us Jeff Cloud, the Honorable Jeff Cloud, the Oklahoma Corporation Commissioner. He is Vice Chairman of the Oklahoma Corporation Commission. Jeff grew up in Oklahoma City, did his undergraduate work at the University of Oklahoma and his law work at Oklahoma City University. He was elected to the Corporation Commission first in 2002 and then re-elected recently in 2008. He was a recipient of the Aspen Institute's Riddell Fellowship recently. He is active in many industry activities relating to the areas which the Corporation Commission regulates. This is his first visit to The Verdict. Welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you very much, Kent. It's great to be here.
Thank you.
What are the biggest challenges facing the industries that you and your cohorts regulate?
Well, we have a wide responsibility at the Commission. One of the challenges right now, we regulate oil and gas exploration in Oklahoma, and challenge for oil and gas companies, as you might well imagine, is the precipitous drop in the price of the commodity going from $140 to around $45 to $50 for oil, and gas has gone down. So the big challenge in oil and gas is is the drilling budgets that the companies have in Oklahoma have gone down quite a bit, and so we'll just try to provide a regulatory climate to where they still want to invest in Oklahoma. On the power side of it, the electricity side of it, we have an abundant, as we can tell in Oklahoma in the spring, abundant resource in wind, but the wind is not located near the load centers like Oklahoma City or Tulsa. It's usually in remote parts of the state. In fact, in the northwest part of the state, it's been labeled as part of the Saudi Arabia wind. The big challenge there is trying to get the electrons down some sort of highway to Oklahoma City, to Tulsa, and beyond. And
Because
so
you can't store wind energy.
You can't
right?
store electricity, and so we need to make sure that they have those highways, so the transmission lines built. So those are just a couple of the big challenges.
Oil and gas, the electricity, power. What else do you all
Natural
regulate?
gas. We do some regulation in telecommunications, not as much as we used to. That's been scaled back quite a bit as far as our regulatory responsibilities. But fuel at the pump, you might even see a sticker on occasion when you fill up that we make sure that you're getting what you pay for. We don't regulate the price of gasoline, but so we have environmental regulatory responsibilities and transportation. We make sure that trucks are certified and are properly certified when they're traveling across Oklahoma's roads, and railroad crossings. And we're the only state in the union, I like to point this out, that has regulatory responsibility over cotton gins.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That
Is
must
that
keep you
right?
busy.
Oh, that we rarely, actually, to be honest, we rarely see a cotton gin case, but we are charged with that.
What size staff does the Corporation Commission have?
We have approximately, Kent, about 440 full-time employees.
Wow.
Each commissioner, though, just has a staff of 2. It's kind of like the mayor's office. You have an assistant and then a chief of staff or somebody, an aide. So, but 440 some odd full-time employees.
Well, how hard was it? I know you had a good educational background before you got to there and a good business background before you got there. How hard was it knowing what the nuances are of these various industries, these disparate industries?
It can be hard, and I think I learned something every day, but I did have a background I worked for J.C. Watts when he was a commissioner there as his aide, and so that helped me quite a bit. So there aren't too many surprises, but it's been said, and I don't know that it's ever been disputed, that the commission has indirectly or directly responsibility over 60% of Oklahoma's economy, and so there's a lot to learn.
Well, let's talk about your statewide election. How did that go, and what was the experience like second time around?
It's a great experience, Mick. I wouldn't want to repeat it every year, but the family has to get into it, and we all did, and travel the state, and it's a great experience. I found that what's redeeming about it and what's affirming about it is when you go out and you campaign and you ask people for votes, and no matter what part of the state, they do appreciate the fact that if you get out and try to campaign in their area, they do appreciate it. So that was.
What feedback do you get from people on the Corporation Commission? I assume in some cases you have to explain what it is you do. In other cases, they probably have a specific issue they've been waiting for the Corporation Commissioner to come so they could ask them.
There's no doubt about it, because the bottom line is the bottom line, and they look at, for instance, on their electricity bill, what the payment is required of them, and so they'd like to visit about that. Sometimes they want to know what we do, and sometimes they just don't want to know. They just say, when it comes to electricity regulation, I just want it as affordable as possible and as reliable as possible. So we do a little bit of education work on if asked, but it isn't one of the types of governmental entities where people sit around and think about the Corporation Commission every day.
I know, at least in the electrical side of the business, you have some rate regulation.
We do.
Do you in other aspects of the business besides electricity?
We do in natural gas, like for instance, customers around the Oklahoma City area, ONG. We have direct rate regulation over them and other parts of the state.
At the consumer level or at the wholesale level or where?
At the retail level.
Retail level.
Where the consumer, we can't enforce specific rates on what they pay for their fuel. They pay for instance, their natural gas, but a good way to think about it is we have direct say-so over how that commodity is delivered to the customer.
When you get involved in one of these lengthy hearings, how do you keep other balls in the air if you're tied up in a rate hearing for several weeks, perhaps?
Well, and that's one interesting aspect of the commission. I can't think of another elected body anywhere in the country that meets every day, and we meet every day at 9:30, and sometimes that docket is 15 minutes long, and sometimes, like you say, it can last for weeks. So you just got to get prepared for it, and when it comes your way, they don't happen all the time though. Those rate cases usually happen with each particular company every 2 or 3 years, and they usually last 3 weeks or a month.
What's the process there as a person who needs to make a decision? What do you want to know? What information are you trying to gather?
Well, that's a good question, and there's mountains of evidence that has been pre-filed that you have to go through. And you want to know what type of expenditures the companies are having to make in an electricity case. It's not as if you can build your whole infrastructure and never have to make other investments in it if you're a company. So you want to know what type of legitimate investment the company's making, but then from a consumer side, you try to achieve a balance. You want to make sure that they make a reasonable return, the companies, and that the consumers aren't dinged so much that it hurts or that it's inordinate. So you try to have that balance.
Is this process duplicated across the country? Does every state or almost every state have the same sort of regulation over the price of electricity, for instance, or does it vary widely around the country?
It varies. Texas does not. Texas is deregulated, and Oklahoma is not. And when I traveled in the 2002 election, that was a hot issue about whether Oklahoma should be deregulated. And I heard loud and clear that we as Oklahomans did not want to go down that path and follow California's example, for instance. Let's just take a wait and see approach. We're in the top 5 or 6 as far as affordability anyway, so let's not mess with it too
Quickly,
much.
what's the pro and cons of deregulation?
Well, ultimately, I think in the perfect world, competition is the best regulator. Where the companies come out and compete against each other.
So there'd be more than one electric company?
More than 2 electric companies, and they're out competing for. But they have a job they have to provide universal service, and that's kind of the hard thing. So I think most Oklahomans now think that our system of regulating that is the best way to go.
I think we need to get to a break.
We will get to a break. We'll be right back with our guest, Jeff Cloud. You're watching The Verdict.
From the first grade on, I knew I wanted to be an artist. That's all I ever thought about. I approach it much different than the normal weaver in that I look at my warp yarns, which are your base yarns, as a palette. That gives excitement to the cloth because you never know what you're going to get. I'm sure it's something I feel, not something I talk about a lot, the spiritual aspect of it, but it is there, it's below the surface, and it's guiding me. I feel very blessed to be a Chickasaw. I feel like I have just been given this heritage. It gives me a whole reason for doing the beadwork patterns in my weave structures. Seeing the Chickasaw tribe fostering art, using art, and how valuable it is to the tribe is inspirational. And the creative thought, it's in business, it's in economics. It's what gives us meaning, it's what gives us depth. It's what makes us see the beautiful of the world.
Home values are down in some states, but not in Oklahoma. Oklahoma's home values have increased 4.2% during the past 12 months. Unlike some states where home values have decreased as much as 20%. Good thing you're in Oklahoma. There may be real estate problems in some states, but there has never been a better time than now to buy or sell a home in Oklahoma. One of the most affordable states in the country, Oklahomans are buying and selling homes every day, and an Oklahoma realtor can show you how. Good thing you're in Oklahoma.
That land next door was a mess. Take more than a lawnmower to revive that land. I heard the oil and natural gas people was cleaning up old oil sites, and it wouldn't cost us a flood nickel. Oh, yes, sir, it was quite a revival. The whole church showed up, want to make a playground for the kids. It sure is a blessing.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. Kent, where to now?
Well, 3 commissioners.
3 commissioners.
Tell us who the other 2 are and how long they've been on the commission.
Bob Anthony first got elected in 1988, and so he's in his 21st year, and Dana Murphy just got elected this past November to a 2-year term.
Well, Dana Murphy had some prior connection with the commission?
She did. She was an administrative law judge on oil and gas matters at the commission for a number of years in the late 90s.
Is there any talk about expanding the role of the Corporation Commission into new areas, or is there talk of compressing that list of oversight you have now into fewer?
I don't know if there's talk either way. I've heard in the past about trying to consolidate state government, and the commission might be a place where some responsibilities would land. A few years ago in transportation, there were 3 governmental agencies that had regulatory responsibility on the roads, and that was the Tax Commission and DPS and the Corporation Commission, and that was consolidated down to just the 2, DPS and the Corporation Commission. Tax Commission doesn't man the weigh stations, for instance. We do that.
Now, the Corporation Commission is a constitutionally created body, not a statutorily created
That's right.
body. So any changes have to be made would be constitutional changes.
I think so. There could be some statutory changes that could happen, and the commission it's really not executive. It has responsibility. It has qualities of all 3 branches. We sit as judges on some cases. We even sit as legislators when we're making rules, and executive. But we're not part of the executive branch. It's kind of a standalone.
The legislature appropriates money for your operation.
They sure do. They get to have a big say-so.
How often do split votes occur among the 3 commissioners?
Not very often, Mayor. I would say on those big rate cases, though, it's more often than not they are split votes. So usually, though, we are united 3-0.
What is the role of the Attorney General's office in rate cases?
The Attorney General is the appointed consumer advocate. A lot of people may run for the Corporation Commission. They say, hey, when I get to the commission, I'm going to be a watchdog. Well, that's okay, but really the responsibilities are that you're supposed to balance and try to, like I said, let the companies try to make a reasonable return and make sure the consumers are protected. But the AG is in every rate case as the advocate for the consumers. He's not supposed to take the perspective of what impact it might have on the company.
6-year terms. What was the thinking behind that constitutionally? Why a governor 4? Why other things 2 or 4, but Corporation Commission is 6?
That's a good question. I think it's because they want you to. I think that our forefathers thought that that'd be a place where some decisions that need to be made should be made on from a long-term perspective, not necessarily the short-term political expediency of the moment. And because the best decisions at the commission is where nobody's happy. So,
but it is a partisan job. You do run on a particular party.
We do. We do. But really, those issues that we're talking about aren't really the traditional partisan issues.
Right.
6-year terms, and there's no term limits.
No term limits, just yet.
Yeah.
What's the longest anyone has served in Oklahoma?
I believe Ray Jones in the 40s, 50s, and 60s served some close to 30 years.
You spoke in the first segment a little bit about California's experience with deregulation of electricity. Watched that with some great degree of interest and noticed that they had quite a wide dispersion of electricity through a number of suppliers, and then a lot of brownouts and a lot of dissatisfied customers. What do you think accounts for what, you're not calling it, I'll characterize it as California's problems with deregulation?
I would say in California, it's as if you said, Ken. I mean, they had very varied suppliers. They didn't have one particular company that they could point to. They just had all kinds of problems, and it was a glaring example for Oklahoma at that time when we were moving quite quickly to restructuring or deregulation.
Well, there were some bills in the legislature seeking to bring about deregulation.
I think they may even passed it. That was before I got to the commission, but they may even passed one body of the legislature. I mean, it was moving fast. And then California happened, and everybody just said, whoa. And that probably was good counsel at the time.
Is there any state that you're aware of that really has implemented successfully deregulation at the consumer or user level?
Well, at Texas, we can look to Texas, and I'd say some people down there, some proponents might say that it's been a success. Others, I think the reviews would be mixed, because the price isn't necessarily as affordable as it is in regulated states like Oklahoma.
Sorry for hogging the discussion here, but let's talk about how utilities generate their electricity. Is the choice to have a coal-fired generating facility as opposed to nuclear or as opposed to some other hydro, is that something that falls within your jurisdiction?
And that too is a great question. A few years ago we had a pretty interesting case that got some publicity about OG&E and PSO their joint effort to build an addition to a coal plant up in Noble County, and it came before the commission, and it was kind of framed as if it was a choice for the commission to choose between coal or natural gas. Well, that really wasn't it. We don't have those responsibilities. They bring the case, they say this is what we want to do, this is what we want to build, and then we decide. In that particular case, if I may, it came down to the way they wanted to structure it. They wanted the ratepayers to pay for the coal plant before it was built, and they've got 5 or 6 coal plants between them in the state, and they've never done it that way. Usually in the past, they build a coal plant, and that has a way of keeping the cost down if they know it's not already in rate base. They want to put it in rate base before it was built, and by a 2-to-1 vote, the commission said, you can build a coal plant, but we're not putting it in rate base until after. You can build your plant and then come prove it up to the commission later, and they didn't want to do that.
Last time we had a major ice storm, a year and a half ago, we talked about the idea of burying electric lines, both for the visual improvement of our urban areas, but also for the financial impact that it can cause in our communities. What's your view on that, and does the Corporation Commission have any role in whether or not that occurs? It does,
and it was, we had 2 ice storms of the century in one year, in January of '07 and December of '07, and I think the companies and the rural electric cooperatives spent close to $500 million just to get them back to where they were. And we reach a point where we have these aerial lines, and we know that the underground lines are more reliable than the aerial lines, and we had those outages, and it had a huge impact not only on Oklahoma's economy, but it was a life and death matter. I believe 28 people lost their lives in those storms, in storm-related deaths. So then you go into the aesthetics. No question in my mind that it looks better. It's just going to be a question of cost. So we've been able to, at the commission, to move the bar a little bit to start talking about system hardening, to where underground in part, new areas in Oklahoma City and Tulsa are underground, and making sure that the system doesn't just collapse under such an ice storm, which seem to be coming around more often than they have.
30 seconds left. What do people need to know about the Corporation Commission that they might not know or we haven't asked?
I don't know, you've been pretty thorough in your questions. I can't think of anything else that but if they ever have a question, they can sure call our office.
Well, we have your website information.
Yeah.
We'll be giving that here in the final segment coming up. But Jeff, thanks for your work at the Corporation Commission, and thanks for coming out today on The Verdict.
My pleasure.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jeff Cloud, Corporation Commissioner in the state of Oklahoma, elected to his 2nd term last November. Kit and I'll be back with the final word right after this.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. a place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Welcome back to The Verdict. We are wrapping up a show with Corporation Commissioner Jeff Cloud. Jeff is a energetic young guy who already in his second term of Corporation Commission, and I was impressed with the vast amount of information one would have to have or be willing to gain to be able to do that job securely.
I'm sure that he is provided with briefing books and information by staff, but just devoting the time to become familiar with it and to be able to act responsibly and knowledgeably requires a lot of effort. Mm-hmm. And thank goodness he's a vigorous young fellow and probably is doing a fine job out there. He sure gets high marks from those that know him well.
Well, if we have done our job correctly, you probably have some additional questions you'd like to ask Jeff or other members of the Corporation Commission. And so, in advance, we have gathered the website, how you can get in touch with the Corporation Commission and find out more information on that body, and also to ask questions specifically to Jeff if you'd like. And that website address is occ.state.ok.us. That's occ.state.ok.us. And we'd also like to hear from you right here on The Verdict.
Yeah, wish us happy birthday.
Moving into our ninth year as
Yes.
as host of The Verdict, and pleased to be here. We'd love to hear from you on our website, theverdict.tv. If there's a guest you'd like to see or a topic you'd like to see discussed, we'd like to know, and we'll try to schedule it in the future. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We will see you next week right here on The Verdict.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.